Welcome to episode 404 of Get Paid for Your Pad. Today, Eric and I are talking about the future of short-term rentals. Eric, what's going on?
What's up, buddy? Let's talk about it. Let's
Yeah,
dive
for sure.
into it.
Are you? I know you're going on a weekend trip. Are you staying in a short-term rental this weekend?
Always. Yeah, so we're going up to the mountains to disconnect. So today, right around noon, we're leaving all our tech behind, obviously taking our phones, but no computers, a couple of books, and we do this once a quarter for our relationship, where we do a disconnect weekend, spend time in nature, go hiking, whiteboard out specific visions about our relationship, all of that. So yeah, Samantha and I are pumped. We got some hikes planned, all of that. But yeah, we're staying, which is crazy. It's it's a holiday weekend. So, the properties up there, the Airbnbs, short-term rentals, this tiny little mountain town is nearly 100% occupied. I mean, I'm looking at prices and there's only 4 or 5 listings left in the entire town. 4 of them were brand new and they didn't look good. They didn't look good at all. And then the last one that we booked that we're going to stay at, the prices were, I was just blown away on the rates right now. So, and I think it's a great topic, the future of short-term rentals, because that just showed me that, the trends are leading towards those drive-in towns and doing exactly what we're looking for. So yeah, so I'm pumped to get out there, disconnect, check out this, cool little cabin, and it's not too far from the new property we're buying in a couple of weeks.
Sweet. So are you not going to look at your phone at all the whole weekend?
I'm going to try not to. No. So what we do is we delete all of our social media apps. I even delete Slack. I delete like everything that I use on a daily basis. I even find myself like waking up in the morning, going straight to like my Slack account, stuff like that. And once I notice that I'm doing that, I schedule these disconnect weekends to fully kind of recalibrate the way that my relationship with technology. So yeah, we're deleting everything. The only time I'll be looking at the map is for maps, for like Google Map and hiking and stuff like that. That's about it.
It's like you don't want to get lost and become the next episode of I Shouldn't Be Alive.
That's right. I don't think Samantha would do too well in a overnight in the mountains. She might do well.
All right, well, that's good to know. So there'll be no point sending you any Slack messages this weekend then.
I mean, you can send it. I'll read it Monday morning.
All right, man. Well, they say that in order to understand the future, we have to look at the past. We have to understand the past, right? So I wanted to kick this podcast off by talking a bit about the world's most booked Airbnb. Right, it's a pretty cool story. You're familiar with this property, right? The mushroom.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
California. You haven't stayed there, have you?
No. So it's a mushroom. It looks like a mushroom dome. Where in California?
It's in the Santa Cruz Mountains.
Oh, okay. Okay, cool.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, and there's an article that on Hustle. We'll put up the link in the show notes. The hustle.co, inside the world's most booked Airbnb. And what's really interesting is the story. This Airbnb was founded by a lady named Kitty. She actually lived there herself for a couple of years as part of a disconnect that she was doing with her family. But it's the 8,357th property on Airbnb. So it's one of the first properties on Airbnb, right? Right now we have 5.6 million. And she put it on Airbnb in 2009. So that was just less than a year after Airbnb started the company. Since then, 5,800 people have stayed in this tiny little mushroom dome. 5,800 people, which is pretty crazy, right?
Wow.
It only has like a few unoccupied nights a year, and the calendar is usually booked out 8 months in advance. Now the host is charging $156 a night, which is way below what she could be charging, right? Because if you're 8 months booked out, that means
Yeah.
you can charge a lot more. She could probably charge like, 300, 400, maybe even $500. But to her credit, like she doesn't want this property to be accessible only for people with a lot of money. So she kept the rate pretty low.
I love that.
So yeah, it's pretty interesting to to think about that, because I think there's something that we can learn. There's a reason why this little dome in the middle of nowhere in the forest is the world's most popular Airbnb.
Yeah. Yeah. I love how I loved how she kept that at a desirable number for people, right? So anybody can stay at that dome. That's pretty awesome. The Mushroom Dome. That's interesting. Like, that's what we can do with our businesses. Like, we're looking at numbers, like we can maximize that demand. But how much, also the question becomes like, how much of the demand starts dropping when it's $300, $400, $500 a night to stay there. So there's another property in Joshua Tree that our friends are staying at this weekend. It's the Mirror House. It's not on Airbnb. They specifically only do direct bookings. And architect built this home in the desert of Joshua Tree, made out every service is made out of a mirror, outside and inside. It's kind of crazy. But he charges like, I think it's like $800-900 a night. And he has demand that goes out months and months and months in advance. So yeah, it's interesting how we can have, it's all about the experience, obviously. And she, with that dome house, can for sure double those prices if she wanted to, but it's cool that she's taking the model of just kind of opening it up to the world, and allowing anybody in the property.
Yeah, and I was reading some stats on searches on Airbnb, and I found out that the searches for unique properties on Airbnb were up 94% during the first half of 2021 compared to the same period 2 years ago. So it almost doubled, right? And so you and I think we're on the same page when we both think that this trend is going to accelerate, or at least continue into the future. The way I always think about it is, especially when I look at younger people, is like, it's so much about the experience. And I always think, like, in the future, everything has to be Instagrammable. Like, if it's not cool enough to do an Instagram story, then people are not gonna want to have that experience.
Yeah, I mean, if you break that down, it's like, why is it, we call it Instagrammable because it's very relative to us now. But if we break that down further, essentially at the end of the day, what we're doing is we're creating experiences that cultivate stories, right? So the experiences that we create, if you're staying in the Dome House and you book 8 months in advance, like the anticipation to lead up to that stay, and then you're getting there and it's like, oh, it's only $150 a night, and look at this, you're obsessed with the entire experience. It's just like when I stayed at the Potato Hotel in Idaho, Christy Wolf, her listing. We could not, like, we don't stop talking about this thing because it's such a unique experience of staying inside a potato on a farm that comes with a cow that you can play with, right? And it's like, this is crazy. We're going to talk about this for forever. So it's like, yes, it's Instagrammable, but it's also, at the end of the day, it's like, we're cultivating these stories that we bring with us, and forever, that we're going to be talking about that. And that's why I think, this topic of like, what's the future of short-term rentals? Like, we're seeing that, and we've talked about this quite a bit, but we're seeing those trends of going into, how do you create more of a unique experience, where a few years ago, up until the pandemic, it was like all about, how do you get heads and beds in apartments and condos downtown cities? Now it's not about that. Now it's about, like, how unique can you get? How Instagram, air quotes, Instagrammable can you get, or what story can you create through your properties? So yeah, I love that. I love this stuff. And, I also think there's a huge opportunity here for people to move into this space. I know there's a ton of money. There's a ton of companies. Every single, like, student we speak to for Legends X or for the Legends Mastermind, everybody wants to get into experiences, or they have something that they're building now. And everybody I speak to wants to build tree houses or domes or something unique. So it seems like the space for unique experiences is crowded, but you go on an Airbnb. I was looking for it this weekend. You go on Airbnb and you search their unique stays and go anywhere. There's not a lot of properties on there. You know, like they were giving us suggestions that were 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 miles away. There was nothing in California I could go to, or Nevada. I'm like, this is crazy, man. There's a lot of room, especially on the Airbnb platform, to have fun, create some art through real estate.
Mm-hmm. Why do you think that this trend exists? The trend of people wanting to have like cooler experiences when they travel.
I think we just get to, I think Airbnb, well, I mean, if you think about it, like one of the things that we're always growing up that we always want to do is experience different things, right? It's like one of my favorite things growing up, we called it dream building. We would jump in the car and drive up to the wealthy areas of New Jersey and just drive around the streets, staring at the big homes and just all the questions that come along with, I wonder what they do for a living. What does the inside of the house looks like? How much, I wish I could stay there for a night. So all this stuff is in us, is to have these experiences. And with Airbnb, I mean, we all know this has kind of opened up the world for us to experience different cultures. But what's cool about this is like, we get to experience somebody else's vision and thought, right? So it's a different feeling that we get versus going into a apartment or a condo that was staged strictly through like Wayfair. That's cookie cutter. It's the same stuff. It's cheap material, but it looks good. It's passable, all of that. There's no soul in that. And I think especially now with what's been going on in the world, people are really looking for deeper connection. They're looking to be around more things that are real. Right. And I think that's why we're going into those marketplaces. Like, one is to have fun, like our childhood, childlike curiosity comes out. Two is like we get to step into someone's vision and like our project, if you will. But three, it's like that soul of these properties. It's a bit different. Like if you go to the Bolt Farm Treehouse in right outside of Chattanooga, Tennessee, and you stay at one of their domes, like you stay there, it's like, man, you can feel the vision, you can feel the soul of the owners, Seth and Tori, on how they built it, how they designed it, all of that, versus going to a Motel 6, which is like just cookie cutters, just to lay your head and have a place to sleep, shower, all of that. So yeah, I don't know the full reason for it, but I think all of that has a big play into why this is growing super fast right now.
Yeah, and I think it also has to do with how younger generations are constantly using social media.
Okay.
Because like the one thing that really blew my mind was, I think it's Hong Kong, or somewhere in Asia, there's a restaurant where you go in and there's all these like beautiful plates with food, but you're not supposed to touch it. They're just to take stories for your Instagram, right? So the fact that there's demand for that, it just kind of tells me like people are thinking like, hey, I want to put some cool stories on my Instagram, right? What can I do? Like, you're in the same house every day, and it's like people are looking for something cool to share on social media. And so, I think that has to do with it as well.
I agree. Yeah. I think at the end of the day, it's just sharing these experiences with people, right? And having that connection. But yeah, I mean, that's definitely a huge part of it. And I mean, why not? Why not? I mean, those are awesome things to share on social media. So let's continue to create it for them.
Yeah, for sure. I saw an interesting article about 10 travel trends, because I think it's really interesting when we talk about the future of short-term rentals. I think we both agree that there's going to be a lot of demands, right? For obvious reasons, right? People are more flexible. They can work remotely. Obviously there's a boom in travel coming on. Everyone's cabin fever. People want to get out and start traveling. Also, people want to avoid crowded spaces, right? Even when everyone's, like used to the whole when the corona thing is not so much of a topic anymore. I think people still are going to look for less crowded spaces. But let's talk about some of these travel trends, because I found some interesting ones. So let me just walk you through this article, 10 travel trends, right? Number one, it's living abroad. Like people, they think that people are going to be living abroad more. Probably has to do with flexibility of working remotely, right? You can if you can work remotely, you can do like what digital nomads call arbitrage. I can't remember the exact name what they call it, but essentially what you do is you work for an American company or European company, but then you go live in a company where the cost of living is a lot lower, right? So it's called geo arbitrage, right? So I definitely think that's going to be a big thing. And then let me pick out the most interesting ones. The workation is a big one, right? You're going on holiday, but you're still working. Then they talk about Gen Z. So I don't actually know what Gen Z is. Maybe you can explain that to me.
I think Gen Z is the generation after the millennial generation, right? So
Okay.
I don't know. I could be wrong with that. I think, Gen Z is the generation that's like coming up now, like the 18, 19-year-olds now.
Yeah. So that's interesting, right? Because I have a nephew and a niece who are pretty young. They're like 17 and 19. And I feel bad especially for them that they were in this lockdown, because those are years that you really like you becoming an adult, and when you want to have experiences and you want to meet people, you want to do all these fun things. And they've been, pretty much in lockdown for like a year or two, right? So I can totally see that group of people, those younger people, they're just dying to get out there and explore the world, right? So that makes sense to me. Reunion travel, that's an interesting one too, because there's a ton of people around the world, like families that live in different places that haven't seen each other for a while, or groups of friends, and everybody wants to reunite, right, in the next couple of years.
Well, I mean, we're starting to get, even though we didn't take over the property yet, we're starting to get those types of bookings for the cabin village that we're buying in a couple of weeks. We've received 3 requests of families who want to book out the entire village to fly and drive up their entire family, so they could all be in one spot together. We're looking to do the same thing, like the same thing with us. Like we haven't seen our some of our family members in over 2 years, right? So it's like we want to get to a point where we can bring everybody to one location, have a cool experience, but then be able to stay in one spot. So reunions are going to be huge. Moving forward,
100%. Next one that I think is interesting is wide open spaces. Right. And this has to do with what we just were talking about, right? People have cabin fever and they just want to be in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. That's what I'm going through right now. I'm literally, in like 4 hours, I'm driving up just so I could stand on a mountain somewhere.
Yeah.
Just get out there.
And the next trend is travel agents are going to make a comeback. And that's because the demand for customized travel experience is going to go up as well, which I believe that's true.
Yeah, I love that.
So that's an interesting one. And then the next one is bubble groups.
What the hell does that mean?
So you know how through COVID they were talking about like how everybody has to kind of stay in their own little bubble. It's like, for example, right, in some countries where I'm from, for example, in Holland, you were allowed to go to a restaurant during COVID with a group of up to 4 people, but only if those 4 people were in the same bubble, which means like they're either in the same family or they live in the same house. So yeah, this article is talking about how we've gotten used to this bubble idea, and now we're going to travel with our little bubbles because people are still going to be a little bit of, scared of like mixing with, other groups and other people.
Got it.
So that's a pretty interesting one. And then the last one is it's called a smaller footprint. So essentially what they mean by that is, a remote destination, like it's kind of same with the open space, with the wide open spaces. Just staying somewhere very local, very away from everything, like maybe, going on a little boat somewhere, going in the ocean in the middle of nowhere, going on a farm, like agriculture, tourism. That's the trends.
Yeah. And I think with this too, it's like we're seeing a lot of confusion in the world right now. It's, all these governments trying to figure out how to deal with COVID and passports and all these other things, which from my point of view, seems like nobody has any idea what they're doing. Everyone has a different approach to dealing with this. And the best bet to move forward with travel is to make it very inconvenient to travel, right? And I think it's going to become, like, especially international travel, it's going to continue to become a bit more challenging over the next 12 to like the next 1 to 3 years. I think it's going to be very, very challenging for us. So that smaller footprint makes sense, right? And we all know this, like the driving markets and being able to tap into those markets. So yeah, and then a few other things I wanted to talk about is like the future of short-term rentals, because I'm sure there's a lot of people here that are listening, and I'm constantly thinking about the operators that we work with and hosts that we work with that are predominantly in city markets. And it's crazy because when I was growing my short-term rental business here in San Diego, a majority of our properties were downtown, and I saw the writing on the wall of, if anything major happens here, we're going to be in a very challenging position because there's so many listings in one centralized location and nothing really sticks out. Like we can have cooler condos and apartments and better locations, but obviously we never saw a pandemic coming. So, cities are still doing quite well. Some of our clients, that are even in smaller cities like Detroit are still doing pretty well. A lot of local travel going out there. But one thing I wanted to talk about that I think is the future of short-term rentals, but also anybody can deal with is, and we've been talking about this for a while. This is the whole point of what we created with Legends X. But now it's become real, like within the industry, is that the future of short-term rentals is brands, short-term rental brands. I think for many different reasons. One is, and what I mean by a brand is a hospitality brand that has a identity, has a certain clientele that they go after. They serve certain properties, certain travel needs, all of that, right? A certain brand around what we're doing in short-term rentals. And I'm not talking about having thousands of units. We're buying a short-term rental brand that has 4 units, right? But the reason why I'm bringing this up is, I think regardless if you're in a city market, suburban market, or rural market, which seems to be the up and coming markets for at least now, regardless of where they're at, I think the future is within the brands, developing brands around short-term rentals versus being the host, the Airbnb host that has a bunch of listings and there's no identity, and they're just, they're kind of disconnected from the property, from the brand itself. There's a handful of reasons behind this. One is, I think guests are seeking those experiences, but they're also seeking to really connect with the brand. And it's either they can connect their identity with the brand or with the individual host, right? So like the Mushroom Dome host, I believe that's the only property she hosts, right? Is that one unit. But then you look at, again, the Bolts, they're building this brand where they have these awesome domes and tree houses in these awesome locations around the country. And their guests are connected to their brand and what they stand for and what they deliver, right? So I think guests are seeking that a lot more nowadays, especially on Airbnb, because you go on Airbnb and it's a freaking mess. Yes, we're looking at reviews. Yes, we're looking at photos, but there's only so much that you can look at to where it's like, after a while, you're like, man, I just want to work with somebody that that delivers what I'm looking for. Right. But then two is there is a lot of demand on the investor side to acquire brands right now in the short-term rental industry. And this is something that we educate our students on in Legends X is like, hey, we're going to develop this hospitality brand. We're going to go from a hectic host to an established hospitality brand. And one of your options, once you develop this, is you could either sell this company or you can grow it and be a generational company, right? So V-Trips just raised $250 million to specifically acquire other short-term rental management brands around the world. Not Guesty, Vacasa, constantly raising money just to acquire brands, right? And we're seeing this pop up all over the place. You and I are buying our first hospitality brand, and that's now becoming our model of expansion, is finding other brands either inside Legends X that we work with or other brands that are out there that we can acquire and revamp and put our technology, our systems, all of that in there, because we know that the guests are seeking those types of brands, established modern short-term rental brands. So I think for the future of short-term rentals, especially for the people that are listening that want to do multiple short-term rentals, they want to build a business around this, not to discourage from the individual host. Like if that's your goal, is to like run one or two really well short-term rentals that your identity is attached to, that's freaking amazing. Guests love that. Guests want that. It's that middle ground, that hectic host position where we start growing, but there's no identity. We try to remove our personal identity from the listings with technology, but we haven't established a brand. So I want to challenge everybody. It's like, look at what you're doing, develop this brand, ask the question, what is the goal? Are you selling this or are you scaling it? Because I think with everything we're doing, unique stays, new markets, all of that, there's a lot of demand right now for people to acquire established brands that have the right properties and the right guest equity in their brand. So that's what I'm excited about in this industry, stepping forward in that. Not only buying up some brands, but eventually selling some brands in the future.
Yeah, I think you make a good point, because if you think about the perspective of Vacasa, V-Trips, they are looking for something specific, right? They're not just buying random short-term rentals, right? So if you run a short-term rentals, like some of the hectic hosts that we see, who basically kind of taken on whatever they could find, right? They have like one big 4-bedroom that they cater to families, and then they have a couple studios where they cater to couples, and it's just kind of like whatever they come across, they start managing. That's not so interesting for a bigger company to buy, because it's just not clear, like, who's the guest avatar, like what type of properties are they. It's just a bit of a mix. So, and interestingly enough, I was talking to our investor a couple of days ago, and he typically prefers to stay in hotels, right? And so I asked him, like, why do you prefer to stay at hotels? And his answer was, well, I've stayed at Airbnbs, but there's no consistency. Like one time the internet is good, one time the internet is not good, one time the host communicates well, another time there's no communication. One time the check-in was smooth, another time it was a headache. And so that really made me think, that's really what you're talking about, right? Where
100%.
when you recognize a brand on Airbnb, and like, okay, if I stay in this Airbnb, then I know that there are certain standards, I know what to expect, so I feel more comfortable booking that over and over.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the inconsistency of booking on Airbnb is one of the biggest challenges our industry is going to have to overcome, right? And there's so many people that love Airbnb and they love the concept, they love the opportunity to stay in at cool properties, but with certain travels, they just want to know that things are going to be met to their expectations, right? Every Airbnb we book, if it's not part of a brand that we're aware of or we can educate ourselves on, we are kind of rolling the dice on the experience we're having. And that's fun to certain extents, but I've had some horrible experiences on Airbnb because of the host, not because of the company of Airbnb. And everyone always blames Airbnb. When a guest has a bad experience, they blame the company Airbnb, but it's the host that are driving these standards. So if we can create the brands and our brand standards of what we deliver and deliver that across all of our properties, that's where the guest equity comes from, right? So it's like perfect example is this town that I'm going to this weekend, this mountain town. We go there at least at a bare minimum every 90 days, right? If we can get up there once a month, we try to get up there, do some hiking, disconnect. I stay with the same brand, the same hospitality brand every single time I go. Yes, I look on Airbnb to see if there's cool, cool properties that popped up that I've never stayed at before. But I know for a fact that I know how I'm going to be treated. I know how the communication will be. I know the standard of their cleaning. I know their standard of their communication. They have, I think, 80 properties in this town. So I go direct to them, and now they consider me, air quote, a VIP guest, right? Because I go to them so much. So they're offering me early check-in and late checkout, right? And they're texting me right away. And it's, it's real texting. It's not automation texting. It's like, hey, Eric, thanks. Saw that you booked another property. Hey, we're going to have this property ready for you to check in a couple of hours early. And then we've already established the late checkout for you. I was like, this is awesome. Right. So it's like, it's that brand equity that I think will solve those problems. And if we can do that, if we could stay focused, and I wrote down another note here, is less is more. I think the hectic coast right now of like picking up all these properties and all the education and YouTube videos out there around rental arbitrage of how we can run these properties anywhere in the world and run all these listings. We keep growing and growing and growing, and all these things that we're talking about start dropping by the wayside, right? Of creating the experience and maintaining brand standards. So less is more. If we can focus on how to drive those brand standards to a very specific amount of properties that are profitable. And once we build that, then we can scale from there, or we could sell that brand that we just developed for what Julie calls an ultimate payday, right? Which, something that I'm just like really excited about learning, and in future podcasts, I'm excited about like talking to people that are actually doing that or have done it or buying brands, all of that. So, but yeah, future of short-term rentals, unique stays, creating brands, focusing on rural markets, destination spots, focus on local, less is more. And just know that there's a lot of money right now to buy up small short-term rental brands.
Yeah, that you gave me an idea there with talking about, loyalty programs. Like at some point, it'd be interesting to see if short-term rental brands are going to establish loyalty programs where it's like, hey, if you stay with us, 5 times, you get a free early check-in or late checkout, just like hotels do, right?
Yeah. I mean, why not? I mean, Eric and Rebecca do something very similar for Hicksville Trailer Palace. If you go and you stay at every single one of their trailers that they have on there, they actually put your name on the wall and you become part of the community, right?
Yeah.
And people like, they keep coming back to stay there. And every time they open up a new stay, the person's name gets dropped off the wall and they have to book that stay to get put back up on the wall. And there's unique stuff that comes with that, right? Early check-in, discounts, all that stuff. So yeah, I mean, we can have fun with that. And I think guests really are seeking that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really smart. Like you add a new trailer and then everybody has to basically book it.
Yeah, exactly.
Amazing. Awesome, man. All right. Well, let's wrap this up. I know you're going on a trip, so enjoy your stay. Hopefully, keep when you're staying at the Airbnb, think about the stuff that we talked about. I'd love some observations and insights when you come back.
Yeah. And for anyone who's interested, I'm going to start documenting all of our trips, especially heading up, buying this property. And we're going to be posting up quite a bit on TikTok. So we're doing a lot on TikTok now, and on my personal Instagram. So we're going to try to just kind of document that whole experience. So for anyone who wants to look at the visual side, follow me on Instagram and TikTok.
Awesome, man. How do people find you on TikTok?
I think both handles, Instagram and TikTok, are under my full name, Eric D. Moeller. So I think if you just search that'll pop
That's
up.
how I found it. So I looked on TikTok. I finally downloaded it because you're such a TikTok star now. So I downloaded it and I put in Eric Miller and I found you. So
What's interesting, man, is I talked to somebody just the other day for Legends X who found us off of TikTok, and he said to me, he's like, he was an older gentleman. He's like, Eric, I've studied everything. I went to college. I had my master's. He's like, I'm constantly studying. He's like, I feel like I've gotten another master's degree just on TikTok because of the 30-second, 1 minute, 2 minute videos of knowledge. And he's like, I follow you and everybody else in the space. And he's like, every single day I'm learning how to build and grow my short-term rental business. So I was like, all right, man, I think TikTok's a lot more than it's finally moved on from like the 14-year-old TikTok dance videos to actually being a platform where you could use for education, which I think is pretty awesome.
Awesome, man. Well, have fun this weekend. And you and I will be back next week with another episode.
That's right.
All right, everybody. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Peace.